y'all. It's Haley. Welcome to Real, the unedited life of a Christian woman. On today's podcast, I'm super excited. I've got Misty here with me, Misty Hurt. Say hi, Misty.
Hey, everybody. Episode numero uno that I'm joining Haley on. Super excited today to be here.
Yes, and we are super excited that you are here. Like, I just can't even. I'm so excited. So today we're going to do a remix of our GLP1 medications podcast. That one has been, I think, one that a lot of people have listened to. And Misty has some personal experience to share with that. And there's always more we can talk about with the GLP1s.
Well, first of all, it's cold outside, so I hope everybody's staying warm out there. And I walk into Haley's house and she has this incredible setup, and I'm just like so tickled to death. Like, I've prepared, I've listened to your episodes, and everybody's like, when are you going to be on?
Yes,
And
I'm so excited it's finally here. It took us a couple weeks to get it together, but we finally did. And we're set up in my dining room currently. Like, it's the only place we could think of that we could make it work. But we're making it work.
I did not show up camera ready. There is a camera running, and I did not show up camera ready. So
Right. Well, we thought we would, kind of do a trial run with the video. I doubt we'll post it because definitely we are unprepared video wise with it. But
my shirt's covered in cat hair and my hair is dirty. So that could be any day, though. Any day. Maybe.
Well, I told you earlier, about an hour before you got here, I was putting on my makeup. I had on pajama bottoms because I do virtual visits all day long. And
were you not wearing a top?
Girl.
You said you had on pajama bottoms. I mean,
maybe I should clarify that. No, definitely had on a top. Always have on the professional top.
You invited me on this show.
You
know what you're in for.
I know. It's
Just
real,
get ready
for sure, y'all.
So your listeners, hope they had a good holiday. I know we definitely had a really good Christmas.
We did.
We had a very different Christmas. We fed, some of you guys know, we fed the homeless animals at Brawa.
It was so awesome.
Your whole family turned out.
We did, and it was great because we never do anything different like that on Christmas, and you did such a good job organizing that.
Well, totally got the idea. I think, I told a lot of people about the Tacoma, Washington shelter that did that for Thanksgiving, and I just saw that video and just bawled my eyes out. And WBKO even covered it. I think their reporter is going to be adopting one of the puppies that we actually didn't see. She wasn't ready. And I'm glad they filmed that. The soundbite that they got, I really wasn't too happy with because they didn't really cover, the idea where it came from and that we really were there to promote the adoption of these animals and to, think about doing, a rescue in the new year. Because truly animals rescue us. They find us. Like the dog that Spot that we saw. We actually thought that was Evan's dog, when he was there. We're like, is that Evan's dog? We're like, no, but they matched. And what do you know?
They had such a connection.
Spot is now a Nashvilleian.
That's
living
so cool.
With Evan,
I was super excited when I saw that on Facebook. I was like, that's great. Because he did. That dog just took to him. And I mean, they were just, they were a match for sure. So that's awesome.
The whole family, they're animal lovers. And Shani, I know we've talked about maybe making this an annual thing, bringing toys and things like that. And what we, of course, my dad, he worked his little tail off cooking all that turkey, and we had 2 pans left. We had sweet potatoes left. And for those of you who don't know, the food that was left over that we did not use at Brawa, because they did have smaller portions. They didn't want to upset their little bellies. But we took that over to the bridge.
That's great.
The shelter. So they, were able to make sandwiches or whatever, all of that turkey that we had left over.
That's
so
awesome.
no food went to waste, and we didn't have to eat turkey sandwiches, until Valentine's Day. So
yeah, that's awesome. I'm so glad of that. So hope everybody had a great holiday season. We're in the new year now. So a lot of people are thinking about weight loss. That just comes along with January, and it tends to go along with New Year's resolutions. I know at my work, when, I do these weight loss medications all day long, it has been super busy, like not a slot open, constant. So,
well, commercially, that's where we go, all the commercials, the gyms, what is it? I think the second Friday in January is when they say is quitting day, which that's the day that most people quit their New Year's resolutions. the second. So now they're saying,
Yeah.
let's have a quitting day. But
I hadn't heard that, but I mean, I could totally see that would be true.
I think New Year's full of a lot of regret over what you spent at Christmas and regret over how much you ate. And now we're
Yes.
all trying to pay the bill and cut the fat.
Absolutely. January, yes. Yes. Totally
And
agree.
January sometimes is the month that never ends. This is like week 7 of
Amen.
January.
Amen. We're halfway through it now, but it is, yes, it takes forever.
So I know in the first episode, you kind of gave a rundown on the different types of the GLP-1 medications.
Mhm.
And do you want to kind of go back over that maybe for those who?
Yeah. So when we think about GLP-1 medications, people get confused between the brands and the compounds. And when I'm talking to patients on the phone, I will tell them really there are two main GLP medications. One is semaglutide, which is the same thing as Ozempic, which is the same thing as Wegovy. So that's your one thing, okay? And then there are three others. Tirzepatide is the same thing as Zepbound, is the same thing as Mounjaro. So you have two groups of these medicines for the most part, and you will hear us refer to them as the compound versus the brand. The brand names are the Ozempic and Wegovy, and the Mounjaro and the Zepbound. Okay. I think people tend to get them confused, and rightly so, because there are so many of them, and you'll hear things on the radio or on TV saying, Ozempic, I'm on Ozempic, or I'm on, but really there are only two main options. Okay.
And that is a lot of the confusion. And I
Mm-hmm.
come at it from someone who is type 2 diabetic. And it was confusing to me
Mm-hmm.
because in the year well, let's just roll it on back here. I've been overweight most of my life. My mother, who you could look at her now and be like, that woman has never had a weight problem. But as a child, she was a chunky child. My dad has struggled with his weight for most
Mm-hmm.
of his life. And we all also carry our weight in our stomachs. And so when we gain a few pounds, we can eat a meal and we can't breathe. So, and it's been up and down. And there's so many different reasons. There's genetic
Mm-hmm.
predisposition.
Absolutely.
There's the way you were raised. I
Mm-hmm.
was an only child. I know you spoke about in yours about, having a large family and you had to share a drink or
Yeah,
that is something
absolutely.
I never had to do. I probably would have cried my eyes out if I would have gone to McDonald's and Richard had told me that I had to split a McDonald's Coke. I
Girl.
remember, oh my gosh, my mom would order and she would say, I need a Happy Meal with a cheeseburger and a large fry. And I remember saying, fries. Like she would say fry, and I
I
thought, I'm
do
only gonna
that.
get one French fry. When I was little, my little brain didn't comprehend. I
Right.
wanted I
Yeah.
wanted more than one fry.
Yeah.
So, we have and it was if they forgot my ketchup, we have ketchup at home, but it's not McDonald's
I know
ketchup.
there's something about McDonald's
What is
ketchup.
wrong with you? That's like McDonald's Coke.
It really
There's a
is.
whole new level of addiction that comes with McDonald's Coke,
I
but that's
know.
another episode.
I'm not convinced they don't put something in it that makes it addictive, honestly.
It's the syrup ratio, and it's the fact that they refrigerate the syrup on the trucks
Really?
when they take it.
Ooh,
The
wow.
straw size, the amount of liquid that hits your tongue, it's a whole science, and
Really?
yes, I'm not even kidding. Go
Interesting.
down the rabbit hole on that
Yeah,
someday.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's no wonder.
Well, yeah, old Ricky, my dad, he definitely made us share a Coke as kids, and I get it more, I guess, now that I have 3 children.
Oh, yeah,
It
you
is
go to
cost savings, but I hated it as a kid. Like, I wanted my own Coke, okay?
now you go to a restaurant and it's $3.
Huh?
I'm gonna tell you who the winners were during COVID. The restaurants who were doing takeout, who were still charging you $3 for a Coke, you didn't
Mhm.
get refills.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's the
anyway.
fat girl in me talking. But so it goes sometimes the way you were raised. My dad grew up very poor. My mom, they were fine. They didn't have a lot, but you go back to the way your parents grew up and
Mhm.
sometimes it's completely different. I remember my dad always saying, it was a treat for him to have a Reese's cup. And at my
Oh, wow.
grandparents, at my mom's mom and dad, they had a candy dish that was full.
Right.
It's just you don't think about little things like that
Mhm.
affecting
Mhm.
on down the road. So, and even my grandpa, like he was a small guy,
Mhm.
but every time you went to get up, you could have eaten 8 plates of food And when you went
Right.
to get up, oh, you can't be full, sit back down here, eat some of
Right.
this
Yeah.
pie.
And the whole clean
And
your plate thing
yeah,
too. I mean, I think
yeah.
that plays into some, and it totally is a lot of, I think genetics is at play. And I think how you were raised is at play.
In the household.
Mhm,
My mom and dad, they cooked. My mom cooked a lot when I was younger. And then you and I, we got involved in different things in school.
mhm.
You didn't get home till late. I mean,
Right.
daddy was a fireman. He worked
Mhm.
from about 8 till 4:30. He would come pick me up. If he couldn't pick me up when I had band practice or something, one of the firemen would come pick me up.
Right.
And then he would go teach classes for the volunteer departments, and he wouldn't get home till 10 or 11 o'clock. So there was definitely a shift in like middle school and high school where the time that we got to sit down as a
Yeah.
family and eat and actually enjoy our food, it was literally, let's go through the McDonald's
Right.
drive-through.
Because that's easy. That's all
Yeah,
you have time to
that
do.
that is what we had to, and there was just one of me. I don't know how these
Well, I'll
families with
tell
6
you,
kids do it.
when I was at Vanderbilt, that 2 years, I was away full time 1 complete year from my family. I would come home on the weekends. Nick was super dad. I mean, he had 3 kids in elementary school and trying to keep them fed on a budget. And so, where did he go? I've heard of the kids say a lot of times, like, we don't want Wendy's anymore because we were at Wendy's all the time when
4 for
mom was
4
at
for the
school.
win.
Yeah. So, it does. What do you expect's going to happen when you eat fast food for an entire year for all your dinners?
Exactly, and then I was single until I was 32, so I don't like cooking. I don't feel like
Right.
I'm good at it. I would go through spurts of doing things, and even when I was married, I didn't enjoy it, and then I would get on these Pinterest sites, and I would buy 18 brand new ingredients that I would never use again to make
Been
these
there.
recipes I had no business making. It's like I barely knew how to boil water,
Yeah.
sweet and sour pork,
Yeah.
no,
I'm not a good cook either. I mean, you
and
may be a good cook, but
but I spent most of my time in the drive-through, and then there are things that we deal with maybe emotionally. I
Mhm.
I suffer from a food addiction. And, you hear people say, "Oh, I love food. I'm addicted to food." But they're not ashamed to say. There have been
Right.
times that I was ashamed to say it. I mean, I have
Yeah.
so many stories, and then you tell them and people are like, "Well, I can relate to that." I mean, honest fat girl story here. I would go through the drive-through at Krispy Kreme, order a dozen donuts. I would order a dozen donuts and ask for extra napkins, so maybe they thought I wasn't eating all the
Yeah.
donuts.
Yeah.
I've gone through multiple drive-throughs in one night,
Yeah.
and there is no satiation after that. It's not
Right.
fulfilling. You're not only, like, physically ill
Right.
afterwards, but
Yeah.
then there is the guilt.
Yeah. Well, there is a real disorder called binge eating disorder.
Exactly,
And
and
we talk about that too, in my line of work, that it is a real thing and it's a real thing to even seek psychotherapy for.
it very is because it's embarrassing because it shows lack of self-control is what you feel. People hear about anorexia, they hear about bulimia, which is the
Right.
binge with the purge.
Mhm.
I personally hate throwing up. There is there's an episode of Everybody Loves Raymond, and they're talking about how, what are our goals in life? So they write down their life's goals, and they're laying in bed one night and Deborah reads hers, and they're like, travel here, do this, all these, big bucket list
Yeah.
things. And she takes Raymond's list and she says, number one, never throw up again. And I'm like, that would be the best goal ever. It comes from my toes. It's terrible.
I hate throwing up too. Oh,
But anyway,
it's one of the worst.
so when you just say the binge eating disorder, people are like, "Well, that's just where you don't know when to put the fork down." And I'm like,
No, it's a real
"It's
thing.
a real thing." And
Absolutely
there's
it
a lot
is.
of pain that comes from behind it and
Mhm.
with it.
Mhm.
And it's a coping mechanism.
It
And
is.
it's an addiction.
Mhm.
It's like alcoholism.
Yeah. I think some people refer to it as stress eating. I think that's a thing too. I mean, that can be binge eating disorder.
Exactly. Where it's mindless. It's completely
Mhm.
mindless.
Do you wanna talk about your experience with GLP-1s in general?
Yeah. So, dealing with weight issues and coming from, genetic disposition and lifestyle and just not making the right choices. I think it was about 2009 when I
Mhm.
started taking my first medication for high blood pressure. I
Yeah.
had terrible headaches.
Mhm.
I would have headaches every day of the week almost. Was it migraine? Was it sinus? It was my blood pressure.
Yeah.
When I started, blood pressure medication, that immediately helped the
Right.
headaches.
Yeah.
So then it's a slippery slope. You joke about it. It's like, well, I've got one medication under my belt,
Mhm.
and then it was, later on they had to up the blood pressure medication and then a
Mhm.
water pill. So kind of dealt with that since 2009.
Mhm.
And probably the smallest I ever was, my adult life was actually at the beginning of college in 2002.
Mhm.
And then moved to Nashville. You go out and
Right.
eat, you're eating
Yeah.
all these, things you don't need to be eating,
Mhm.
and you're living on your own.
Right.
And I was really bad about I do good during the day. And my mom has this problem too about
Mhm.
eating at night.
Yeah.
You've denied yourself throughout the day, and then at
Right.
night you just
It's too
go
much.
buck
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
So, but as far as my experience with the GLP-1 came from when I was diabetic. I was pre-diabetic for years,
Mhm.
and in 2018, was put on a medication that can increase your blood sugar levels and your cholesterol levels.
Okay.
Lo and behold, I became type 2
Oh,
diabetic and had to
man.
go on cholesterol medicine. So
Yeah.
metformin was something that I was on actually
Right.
long before,
Mhm.
well into the early years of being pre-diabetic for
Mhm.
PCOS. I know a lot of women that are listening are probably dealt with that.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, metformin is used as a first line medication for people who may have prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. In addition, it can also be used for weight loss because it has some properties of appetite suppression in some people.
And the PCOS,
Yeah.
polycystic
Also,
ovarian syndrome,
mhm.
insulin resistance.
Yes.
I definitely have the body type with the bigger belly, high
Mhm.
cortisol levels due to stress, due to overproduction of
Right.
cortisol. It can be a number of things. You can, look at the belly and kind of tell, and this is
Mhm.
just my body type. It's not my favorite, but it's what I have. But that was insulin resistance, is something that
Right.
people
Yeah.
hear a lot about. Metabolic syndrome,
Yep.
which is basically a fancy word for being big.
It just
You
comes
know
along, it's kind of the trifecta: high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and obesity.
exactly. You look it up and you think there's just some special thing it is, and it's really just it's just being overweight and all the
Mhm.
comorbidities that go with it.
Correct.
And there's no cure for it. You just have to treat the arms of it,
Mhm.
the roots
Mhm. Yeah.
of the issue. So, I guess it was about 2018 or 19, that I had started hearing about the GLP-1 medications, and since I was diabetic at that time, knew that it was gonna be something that insurance would cover.
Right.
And so my A1C wasn't horrible.
Mhm.
It never really has been.
And for those of you who don't know what an A1C is, it's a blood test, and it's your average blood sugar over the past 3 months. That gives us a number. Uh, Once you get to an A1C of 6.5, you're considered a type 2 diabetic.
Yeah, I think 6.7 was the highest mine ever
That's
got
good.
to.
Yeah.
So, um, started off on Trulicity,
Mhm.
which was not one of the 2 we're gonna be really talking
Is it
about
a
today.
daily injection,
It was
Trulicity?
a weekly.
Oh, it was
It was
weekly. Okay.
I think it's dulaglutide. It was
Do
one of the
Yeah.
tides.
Yeah, it's not one that we frequently use. I'm not as familiar with
It was one
Trulicity.
for the early adopters, I guess. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
had, usually what people complain of, the sulfur burps. It was terrible.
Yeah.
I would burp and someone would come in my office. I'm like, just don't come in here because it just smelled
It
like I just made a
Yeah, no,
mess.
sadly, it does.
And I topped out on it. It didn't really do anything for appetite or weight loss.
Mhm.
Moved on to Ozempic,
Mhm.
kind of the same with it. Over a year, maxed out the dose. It was just
So you never really
gastric.
had any weight loss with that?
Mm-mm, I
Okay.
didn't. Gastric distress. Didn't have any real appetite
It
suppression.
was just more of a
Right,
bothersome.
right.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, okay, well, third time's a charm.
Right.
Let's try the Mounjaro. And again, the Mounjaro was for type 2
Mhm.
diabetes,
Mhm.
and insurance would cover that. And I was on it for about a year.
Yeah.
I had made it up to the next to last dose, the
So that would be, yeah.
12.5,
Mhm.
and it was summer of 2023 when I started it. Summer of 2024, just this last summer,
Right.
I'm sitting there eating and I was full. And I know for you listening, you're gonna be like, "Okay, you've never
Right.
been full." People who don't deal with food
Mhm.
addiction, food issues,
Mhm.
you don't know what it's like to just keep eating.
Yeah.
You're not even really hungry anymore, but you're, quote, "hungry."
Yeah. See, I cannot relate. And I think most of my life that I've always felt like I can't ever talk about being little because I always felt shamed almost.
Right.
Because honestly, for me, it is just, and I'm fortunate, I now know that, when I was younger, I would just get full. And when I was full, I stopped eating, and people, I mean, I even remember as a kid, like, being at a birthday party and somebody say, I mean, they have all these snacks on the table and they're like, "Haley, do you want some M&Ms?" And you're not eating anything. And I'd be like, "No, I'm not hungry." Like if I wasn't hungry, I didn't eat. But that's what came naturally to me. I think just genetically, I was fortunate that I was like that. In treating this now, obesity is a disease, and I fully believe that. Um, I can see now a whole lot clearer what it is that you're talking about.
Right. And so what is it? So when people have weight loss surgery, especially when
Mhm.
they have the sleeve and they go in and they basically make your stomach the size of a banana,
Mhm.
it slows down is it ghrelin?
I am not well versed in that,
Okay.
just to be honest.
It's whatever
That's the
basically tells your body
Yeah.
that you're
So
full.
I think you have the right hormone, yes.
Right. So that hormone in people like me, we either don't produce enough of it or our
Mhm.
brain does not recognize it.
Right.
And something in the Mounjaro, which do believe is one of the reasons why it is the most successful
Mhm.
as far as pounds lost in the
Mhm.
patients
And
who
it
are
is.
taking it, it changed something in my brain.
Mhm.
I remember at work one day, Helena had, bought us some pizzas because we were super busy. And I
Right.
took I was still taking out the portions of the big girl,
Yeah.
not that I'm small, but it was pre Mounjaro portion. So I grabbed 2 pieces of pizza and
Uh-huh.
a breadstick. And I had a piece of pizza, half the breadstick, and I went to take a bite of the second piece of pizza and I had to spit it out.
Yeah. I've heard
And
that.
I just sat there and I laughed and I was like,
What is this?
it's so odd. And that's it. I'll
Mhm.
just eat and then then it was working. I lost about 30 or 40
Yeah.
pounds in about 4 months.
Wow.
And then Murphy's Law,
Uh-huh.
the county changed insurances.
Of course.
And we went from United Healthcare to Anthem. And
Mhm.
even though this was not a new prescription, it was a new prescription to them. And
Mhm.
August rolls around after the change, and guess what? They're not going to pay for it. So we're like, okay, this is easy. We're going to do an appeal. You're
Right.
you're diabetic. You've had
Yeah,
results
you
with
would
it.
think.
It took until December.
Yeah.
I don't know what was going on. There were some things with the appeal, and then there was an open appeal, and there was red
Right.
tape everywhere.
Yes, yes, yes,
But I
yes.
was also going kind of through some stuff, and now I look at it as God being like, okay, if you had been on this medication,
Mhm.
you would not have been focused on why you were on this medication
Right. And you
because
wouldn't
I
have
was
done as
going
well.
exactly. I would not
Mhm.
have done as well.
Yeah.
And looking back now, I can see that and I
Yeah.
can appreciate that. And that
Right.
would have been a
Yeah.
waste. And then I probably would have given up and be like, oh, this
Yeah.
isn't working anymore because
Yeah.
that's how I am. I
But that's not uncommon for insurance to deny you for typically, I mean, it
Do you know
seems
why
like
they
no
denied
reason.
me?
Why?
My A1C was too low. It's because I take the
I
medicine.
know, right? It
I
makes
mean,
no sense at all.
they're like,
We see that all
yeah.
day long.
And
It's
that's the thing. It's like,
crazy.
this is not new. This is new to you. And
And you
they,
know what's funny? It typically doesn't matter what the healthcare provider says or what they put on there. If that's what the insurance company has decided they're going to do, that's what they're going to do.
well, I'll tell you who the winning person ended up being a girl, Tisha, with
Mhm.
Anthem. She's fabulous.
Awesome.
Um, Jared at Pedigo Listenberry put me right in touch with her
Mhm.
and she kept me updated. She
That's
spoke English
awesome.
as a first language.
That's awesome.
And she was fantastic. And she was calling me. I was actually at another doctor's appointment and I literally cried
Yeah.
on the phone with her because she said, Misty, she said, we got the multiple appeals taken care of. She said, I submitted it again and it was denied again. Even though you met all the criteria, she literally said she walked it to their pharmacist at Anthem, laid it in front of her. She said, I'm tired of dealing with
Yeah.
this. The prescriber is tired of dealing with
Yeah.
this, and the patient is definitely tired of this.
Amen.
And the pharmacist, she said, you're going to do an override of this
Mhm.
PA, and she will have her medication tomorrow.
Good for her.
Now, we'll have to do this every year,
Yeah.
but and I've had some people ask me, well, I need to lose a few pounds. Is our insurance going to pay for it? And I said, honey, you better, you better go somewhere else because I've had to fight.
Oh,
And,
yeah, absolutely.
and so that's, and I'm glad that you educated people on that because, there are, hear people, well, I'm diabetic. I need it more than so and so. It's not about that.
Mm-mm.
Everybody really, I'm pro advocate, of myself when it
Mhm.
comes to healthcare. You
Yeah.
have to be.
Oh, yeah,
You
you
you will
absolutely
get left
do.
behind if you're not. That's
Mhm.
not dogging any medical professional.
No.
But there is so much and there are so many things going on
Mhm.
in that doctor's life and
Right.
the administration
Yeah.
side. You have to know
I
what's going
always tell
on.
patients to be your own advocate.
Yeah, and if I go to the pharmacy and I've filled 19 of the prescriptions that I have and I don't even know what I filled, how are they gonna I don't
Right.
people are like, "Well, oh, shouldn't you know what I filled?" Well, have your list of medications. Be
Mhm.
prepared. Don't be
Mhm.
an idiot.
Yeah.
You've gotta know. So
Yeah,
that's my
and I
thing
do wanna
about.
make the distinction that, because sometimes I have patients that get confused about I mean, actually all day long, patients get confused about which medication should be taken for type 2 diabetes versus obesity. These medicines are branded for specific diagnoses.
Exactly.
So, type 2 diabetics, they should have what is reserved for them is Ozempic and Mounjaro. Those are supposed to be medicines taken by the type 2 diabetics. So it's unlikely that your insurance is going to cover those unless you have type 2 diabetes. Okay.
Exactly. And people need to be educated about what their insurance covers.
Yes.
Because before they start going and asking for something, like our insurance now, which I don't agree with this because I believe that you have to treat the morbidities and prevent the comorbidities. You
Right.
know, if you treat the obesity, if you treat the
Mhm.
reason for being overweight, you're gonna lessen a lot of these comorbidities.
Yeah.
Our insurance right now, and even when we had United Healthcare, it was excluding anything to do with weight loss, no bariatric coverage.
Mhm. Yeah, that's
So
common.
I get it. I do get the reasons why. Well, you did this to yourself. Why should the insurance? I'm not fighting that. I'm not
Yeah,
fighting
but
that at all.
really it's going to require a completely different mindset for these
Right.
insurance companies, and I do think we're getting there slowly, but we are not there yet. You know, one thing in our company that we talk a lot about is that obesity is a disease. It is a disease. If you don't believe that, if these insurance companies don't believe that, they're going to continue to have the policies that you're talking about,
Right.
right?
Where it's
Once
just a character flaw.
Right. Once we realize that obesity is a disease and we treat the obesity, they're going to save so much money in the long run because they're not filling hypertension medication. They're not having patients coming in for high blood pressure, for high cholesterol, for type 2 diabetes. You're preventing those things. And so in the long run, you're going to be saving money. But I think the problem is these medicines are so expensive right now due to patents. So you go to the pharmacy to get something filled and your insurance isn't going to cover it, one of these GLP-1s, it's going to be between $1,000 and $1,500. Okay. So if your insurance company is not covering that, you're going to be responsible for that much out of pocket. Now, think about it in the reverse. If you're paying a $25 copay, your insurance is paying the other $1,000 plus of that medication. That's why, in my opinion, they don't want to cover them. I don't know how, I know insurance companies are extremely wealthy, but I really feel like if they covered every one of these that was submitted to them, it would likely bankrupt them.
They would go bankrupt, and that's what
Yeah.
people don't understand with any kinda insurance.
Mhm.
You're not even paying into just what you and your company are paying into. It's like you're not just sharing with your company, you're sharing with the
Right.
United States,
Mhm.
okay? Any kinda insurance. Look at what's going on in California. Look at what happened in North Carolina. Look at what's happening in
Mhm.
Florida.
Yeah.
Your insurance premium is not going up because the guy next to you,
Mhm.
whatever. We're all paying for this. And that's what people are
Mhm.
not understanding. Why is this, it gets into the political thing and all that stuff, but
Mhm.
we're going to see increases in everything. Mom and dad just moved back from Florida. Thank
Oh,
God. I
yeah.
mean, two weeks after they bought their house down here, they get their insurance premium for their homeowners in Florida went from 3,000 a year to 9.
Wow.
they still haven't sold the house. So
That's
they're paying
crazy.
more than I pay in a mortgage on homeowners insurance. So we're all paying into a pool.
Mhm.
So we do need to get
Mhm.
healthier again. So these premiums, people are like, well, why don't you just have weight loss surgery? When I was married, his insurance did cover bariatric
Mhm.
surgery, and I
Mhm.
went through the whole thing. But you know what? I knew that until I made behavioral changes,
Right.
even the psychologist, you talk to them, you tell them what they want to hear.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
get approved. And I just didn't do it. I don't want to look like some people look after they have surgery. Um, I don't want to look
Yeah.
like, I don't want to look sickly. Some people
Right.
have weight loss surgery and you're like, "What's wrong?"
And I've seen throughout my career that a lot of patients that come to healthcare providers that have had bariatric surgery, I mean, a good portion of them are successful, but also a good portion of them regain the weight.
Because they didn't change their behavior.
Yeah, they re-stretch
Yeah. Well,
everything.
dad had, he had the gastric bypass. I mean, he
Oh,
had
okay.
a really intense,
Yeah.
surgery, and he gained a lot of his back, which he's
Yeah.
lost now. He has
Right.
COPD. It
Yeah.
does not,
Mhm.
it does not do well.
Yeah, he
His
burns calories in another way, not as healthy
exactly.
of a way. Yeah,
Exactly.
through
So,
breathing.
and he needs to keep that belly, weight down.
Mhm.
But it's just one of those things where, like I said, it was me looking at it as, okay, this is something that I'm suffering from.
Right.
And, until, like you said, people look at it as a disease. Mitch Hedberg is one of my favorite comedians. He passed away, drug overdose, of course, but
Mhm.
he, he always talked about, he was like, alcoholism is like the only disease you can get yelled at for having. He's like, Otto, you have lupus. You never hear anybody say, what's wrong with you? You have lupus. Otto, you're an alcoholic.
Right?
Mitch Hedberg, God rest his soul.
I've never heard of
But
him.
Misty, you're too fat. But it is. I mean, it's just like, hey, Haley, tell your heart rate to slow down.
Right, yeah, right.
There's just certain things,
Yeah.
you
You're
know,
right, there's a stigma still
there is. And I'm in
surrounding
therapy
it.
now. I see a great therapist, and I think, it takes so many things. Your mind
Mhm.
is a crazy place, and it can bless you or it can mess you up.
Yes, amen to that, I agree.
So, this is obviously, we're both Christians. This is a
Mhm.
podcast of topics and how it relates to us as Christians and how we
Yeah.
view this. And starting, what's your take on, I know you said in the first episode that you didn't see, kind of a clash with Christian beliefs
Absolutely
in.
not, I don't. We take medicine for seemingly every other health condition, you know? So, and I feel strongly that obesity is a disease. I see nothing wrong at all with taking a GLP-1 medication. I strongly believe in these medications and they work. And there are people out there who will tell you, well, if you would just, focus on what we are eating, and not eat all the processed foods, if we would eat whole foods and fruits and vegetables, you wouldn't have to worry about it because you're not putting in those extra calories that are, that you don't need. I get that, but that's not sustainable in our culture.
I know what to do. You know what to do. We all know what to do. We need to eat whole foods. We need to eat not processed stuff. But guess what? It's 2024 and
Right.
that's kind of hard. And some nights I don't feel like going and
No. And
cooking a chicken breast.
the access to it. And not only that, the cost of it as well.
I mean, hello.
Hmm.
What in the cottage cheese, a tub of cottage cheese, the five, what is it, 5 pounds? I always want to say 5 gallon. That is not what
No,
I've
it's
been,
not 5 gallons.
5 pounds, $15.
That's crazy.
My parents, when they were helping me go through my issues a few years ago, it was $9 and it went to 15.
Mm,
And I was going through like 3 of them a week. I'm like, Daddy, you are spending $50 a week on cottage cheese. What is
wow.
going on? So
It's crazy. Yeah. And just eggs now. Like I bought a carton of 18 eggs and it was like, I want to say like $7 or $8.
this is ridiculous. You should start like bootlegging eggs or something. I mean, you're
For
going to have to like,
real. Said it
so,
might be easier to have chickens.
well, they're going to need to be like, you're going to have to hold on to them because they'll start stealing chickens and then,
Yeah.
selling eggs on the black market.
There's no way I
'Cause
could
you'll
ever
be
have chickens. No way.
But the medications as far as, yeah, we take medications for everything. If men can take medications for,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
taking my shot. Because let me tell you, one of my favorite comedians, I know a lot of you probably have heard of her, Shonda Pierce.
Mhm.
She's a Christian comedian. She's hilarious. We should so have her on the show
Do you think
sometime.
she would do
I
it?
have a person of a person who directly knows Shonda Pierce. That would be fantastic.
Well, yeah,
So
we
we
should
need to
figure
work
that
on
out.
that. So she was at a show and she suffers from depression and she's very
Mhm.
open about her use of antidepressants,
Yeah,
which you've covered
I
in an
have.
episode, and that should be like a 5-part series with
Yeah.
me. That remix will be a big one.
Mhm.
But she had a woman come up to her after a show and she was like, I think it's really shows your lack of faith that you take them
Mm.
antidepressants. You just need to rely on God to help you be happy. And she said, well, all right, honey, I appreciate that. Now, won't you take your glasses off and drive home tonight and
Exactly.
let God lead you?
It kills me. I mean,
Let God take you and your astigmatism and get them home safe.
exactly. Good for her. Like, it
But that's
just
the thing. It's just like I said, slow your heart rate down. Tell your
right.
psoriasis to stop flaring up, darn it.
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's ridiculous. And I mean, I remember as a kid, antidepressants having that stigma, even like through just growing up in church and just like worried about needing antidepressants and was it right? Was it wrong? And that was obviously before I was in nursing or anything. But I mean, when I was in, we're kind of getting off topic here, but so we won't
This
go
will be
there.
another episode,
Yeah, it will be.
definitely.
But yes, I feel like obesity is a disease. Depression is a disease, all of things. There's nothing wrong with taking medication for it, in my opinion.
No, and it's abuse. Now, if you are, if you're regular weight and you're trying to get these shots on the black market so you can be
Yeah.
a real yeah, everybody's going to abuse
Right. Yeah.
something.
Now, I
It
will
doesn't matter
say,
if it's legal or illegal. People are going to abuse. That's just everything.
yeah. Now, I will say this. There are people out there who try to get on these injections and don't need to be. That's why there are criteria for them. For those of you who don't know, it, I think any reputable company out there or physician or nurse practitioner or physician assistant, whomever it is that's going to put somebody on these, the criteria that's recommended is you have to be overweight and a BMI of 27 to 30 with a weight related comorbidity to qualify, or a BMI of 30 or higher, which would be obesity. And it doesn't matter. As long as you have a BMI of 30 or more, you qualify. Now, what is a weight related comorbidity? It can be high
Should I go down my
cholesterol,
list? High blood pressure, high
mhm,
cholesterol, type 2 diabetes,
sleep apnea.
sleep apnea. I've got that.
Yeah. Some people PCOS is, some people PCOS isn't. It kind of just depends where you are. But any of those things that are considered a weight related comorbidity and you're overweight would qualify you. But somebody with a BMI of less than 27, I mean, it's there, you can qualify for other things, but a lot of times they won't put you on the GLP-1s.
So can I go off on a tangent here? I
Sure.
mean, it's weight related. I saw an endocrinologist today, and you've known me for years, since
Mhm.
first grade. My eyes don't look like they used to look.
Mm-mm.
And I've had thyroid issues. 2017, something kind of hit me. Autoimmune, they said. My gallbladder went nuts. It went from being fine to almost being gangrene.
Oh gosh.
I developed uveitis, which people are like, oh, yeah, your eye. I'm like, no, this was inside my eye. There was
Mhm.
inflammation inside my eye. It was awful. Felt
Mm.
like searing metal rods going through my eyeballs,
Oh,
sensitivity to light, redness. It did affect my vision. I'm in
wow.
remission from it. I see a specialist at Vanderbilt. And then I went from like hyper to hypo, the thyroid
Mhm.
went nuts. They
Yeah.
said, oh, you have Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune
Mhm.
underactive thyroid.
Mhm.
Well, I obviously, if you've ever heard of Cushing's, if you guys go to Google right now and
Yeah.
Google a Cushing's patient, human, not a dog, you will basically see a drawing of me. It's the humpback, the big belly, the thinner legs, stretch. I mean, it's basically me. So I've been on this quest, it seems like, for 3 years for
Mhm.
somebody to diagnose me with Cushing's. The cortisol levels, which we talked about earlier,
Mhm.
have to be sky high,
Right.
and it used to be borderline. Now it's not. So I went to this new endocrinologist, basically not even thinking about the Cushing's, but
Mhm.
you see these commercials for thyroid eye disease.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is what, and I actually had a doctor tell me one time. I said, well, what about my eyes? Are my eyes ever going to go back? And she said, well, your eyes are like that because you've gained weight.
Mm.
Okay, so there's not enough body room in my body for the fat anymore. It's like pushing my eyeballs out. I mean, that's kind of what
That's
it
not
doesn't
a
make
thing.
sense to me. Like my eyelids sometimes literally do not close.
Oh, wow.
Which I have dry eye anyway.
Yeah.
So I add the CPAP with that. And it's just like I'm sleeping in a wind tunnel every night, and my eyes are super dry. I have blepharitis, which have the styes. So anyway, I go to this, basically for the thyroid eye disease. I'm like, boom, this is something that maybe I can get these infusions, which they're $20,000 a pop.
Yeah.
You have to have insurance approval. So he actually does something nobody else has done. He orders a CT.
Oh.
I'm like, oh, there's got to be inflammation. Something is pushing. Even my eye doctor's like, yes, you have ptosis, PTOSO.
Ptosis.
Yes. Or exophthalmos something.
Yeah.
Where your eyes protrude. And anybody that knows me looks at me is like, yes, your eyes protrude more than they used to. And of course, everything was normal. And I get the argument even from him before he ordered that. He said, well, you're hypo, you're not hyper, you don't have Graves. And I said, well, you can have thyroid eye disease, as he agreed, without having Graves, which is underactive thyroid. So the great mystery of Misty's eyeballs.
Wow.
Thyroid eyes are watching you.
Like a commercial.
Oh my goodness.
I don't have any answers for you either.
You do know that song, don't you?
Honestly,
Hall & Oates, Private Eyes.
No, but you would. You know every single song
It goes,
out there.
Private eyes are watching you, so I go, thyroid eyes.
Oh, it was not on the commercial?
You.
I thought you meant it was on the commercial.
No. That would have been if I made the commercial.
That. They should have done that.
That would have been horrible. Oh my gosh.
No, they should have done that.
That's what would have happened if I would have made the commercial.
You missed an opportunity there. They missed an opportunity.
So looking at this, from the, again, the Christian perspective, I look at it as, okay, what is wrong with what I'm doing when I'm overeating? And I think of gluttony.
Right.
And gluttony is a sin.
Yeah, I know.
And so I look at the medication that I'm taking to help me as a tool in self-control.
Yeah. I have never thought of it like that, but I think that's a very good way of looking at it.
We in gluttony, I mean, it's all, in Proverbs, even Proverbs 23, 20 through 21 can lead to poverty. How much, let me tell you this, I've used Quicken since I was like,
yeah, you told me that.
Yeah, in like 2004. And do you know how much my ex-husband and I spent on food in 6 years?
Oh,
this is embarrassing.
I would hate to know what we have.
Food and groceries. 2 people, well, 3.
In 6 years.
$68,000.
Oh my goodness.
That gluttony, and the gluttony's food or alcohol,
That's crazy.
But it says can lead to poverty. Yes. When you're overeating, when you're going through 2 or 3 drive-thrus in a night, yes. Philippians 3:18 and 19, when we look at food as an idolatry, when we look at it says God is their stomach.
Wow.
That we look at our stomach as God, what we're feeding it. Even when we bless a meal, use this food to the nourishment of our bodies. Let us take it in a way that is pleasing to you.
Right.
Do I say that when I'm wolfing down a roast beef sandwich? Is this pleasing to you? No, it's not even pleasing to me.
Yeah.
Especially not 20 minutes after I eat it.
Yeah. After you've stuffed yourself.
And then 1 John 2, 15 through 7, it literally refers to gluttony as lust of the flesh.
Yeah. I'm glad that you pointed those things out because, that's not something that I had really connected the dots with. I mean, I've seen the passages that talk about gluttony, but for me, that's not been something that I struggle with. So it's not something I really thought deeply about. But
it didn't step on your toes.
Right. So
exactly.
That's so interesting to me.
Yeah. I look at the gluttony and the sloth. I'm a procrastinator and I feel, a lot of it's laziness. I'd have the, late developed ADHD, I guess, where I'll just put things off. And there might be something sitting in the floor that I step over 15 times before I'll pick it up. I'm like, what is wrong with me? I'm 42 years old. I have a college degree and I can't bend over and pick this piece of paper up off the floor.
I think that's also something that has to do with obesity and as
Well,
well,
yeah,
you know,
your
because
energy levels out.
right,
And I know, it's like, why do I not get the dopamine hit from getting up and walking around the block as I
right,
do taking a bite out of this Mounds
right.
bar?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know? And that's what it is. And I think as Christians, we need to look at things not as a crutch, but as a tool
Yeah.
to not sit here. And I literally, when I'm on the medication, food is not my next thing. I mean, we would be sitting eating one meal talking about what we were going to have for the next meal.
Right. Yeah.
And it doesn't, and I also have food anxiety. Like when I would go to the grocery store, like when I was married, if I didn't
Mhm.
have a list, like I'm not one of these people that can just see things and okay, we'll
Put
just
it
put this.
together. Yeah.
No, I have to have a list and I have to know, like, I don't
Mhm.
know. I've always had that kind of anxiety. Like he'd be like, "Do you want to go to the grocery store after we go?" I'm like, "No, I don't have a list." Like I would instill panic in me.
Interesting.
We're gonna spend too much money. That's kind of like why I
Right.
like the pickups or the deliveries. You
Yeah.
can plan and you can put it in there and you can
Right.
see what you're
Yes,
spending.
absolutely. Yeah.
If I
I
don't
agree with that.
want to, when you see that, if you're putting 3 packs of shrimp, in your cart and it's
Mhm.
costing $20,
Mhm.
you might take, it's just, I don't know. There's
Yeah,
tools
it's
like that.
different when you can see the total adding up versus you're just piling it in the cart, you
Right.
know?
But I definitely think that these medications, just like anything, they're meant to be used. They will be abused.
Mhm.
And there needs to be, and it's the drug companies that are making out like bandits with this, to be honest,
Yes.
because, you said the confusion on what's what is
Mhm.
solely because of marketing,
Yes.
solely because of where they
Yeah.
can make their money. Okay. If you're diabetic, the insurance is going to pay for it.
Mhm.
If you're not diabetic, it's not going to pay for it.
Mhm.
You can't afford it. Okay. We're going to make this other drug. They're the same drug.
They are,
They're
and it's
literally the
confusing to
same
patients,
drug.
super confusing.
And our super amazing FDA
Right.
is just slapping a different label on it,
Mhm.
slapping different people in the commercials,
Yeah.
and boom.
And, we have all these alternate companies now making the compound medications, semaglutide and tirzepatide, and that's even more confusing to the patient, but it is giving an opportunity for people to spend less money. Your insurance won't cover it. So here we go. Here's an alternative, but it's still costing the patient quite a bit, even though it's
Yeah.
not $1,000 out of pocket. You're still spending anywhere from $200 to $500 plus a month.
And then what, you talked about in the first episode was, why do I have to pay this fee? Well, you have to pay to go to the doctor,
Right. Yeah.
so you're
I have a
basically
lot of
having the
patients that say
admin.
that they'll schedule their appointment and then they see me and then they're like, "I thought I already paid for the medicine." And I'm like, "No, you paid for the membership." And they're like, "To see you?" And I'm like, "Well, you have to understand these companies have to have a way to run to I mean, that's how they operate is through
Right.
membership fees. They're not charging you additionally for the medicine. It's just that's what it costs. That's what the medicine costs,
So these compounded medications, like, is that what Nick
Mhm.
is taking?
Yeah.
So you said that they can administer them themselves.
Yeah, so the
So they can put the
compounds
whole thing in?
well, yeah. I mean,
Why would
that's
you see?
so it is a
Exactly.
thing. I
It
mean,
takes a few to ruin it for everybody.
it's I tell patients, sometimes I'll even show them the syringe and how much they need to administer as a starting dose because I have had patients that have literally taken the entire vial of medicine and ended up in the emergency room. And emergency room doctors, if you would talk to any of them, would tell you they've probably seen some of these patients. They can't stop throwing up because
Are
they've
we
put
surprised?
no.
I got a hair tool the other day. I got this crimping hair tool and I didn't put the box up. Of course, it was sitting on the couch and I'm just sitting there and I'm reading the instructions. I don't even know how many times it said, do not use the thing while you were in the bathtub or asleep.
I
This is
know,
the people
right?
that
Right.
you're giving drugs
I
to and
know.
telling them to
Yeah.
not, don't take all of it.
Yeah, it's yeah.
The masses are
Swear jar.
swear jar.
Where's our swear jar?
Someone in the music industry, a very well respected industry person, coined that. And
Yeah.
it is very true.
Yeah.
You can't trust people. How
Or
much has Nick lost?
Nick has lost, I don't know for sure. He lost 60 pounds on semaglutide and he plateaued on the semaglutide. And remember, semaglutide, same thing as
Mhm.
Ozempic, same thing as Wegovy. And so when he plateaued on that, we switched him over to tirzepatide, which is a little bit stronger.
Which is what I'm taking, the
It's
Mounjaro.
Mounjaro and it's Zepbound. And he's continued to lose on the tirzepatide. It's been slower, but he's still losing.
But does he feel more of an effect from, even though it's slower?
Yeah.
Because he
So
already has
it's
lost
less
quite a
side
bit.
effects.
Yeah.
And he still has the opportunity to lose more because he had maxed out on the semaglutide.
And it will affect, you can't just eat whatever. Like if I eat, I had chicken tenders the other night from Little Taste.
Yeah.
And
You pay for it?
I paid for it dearly.
Yeah.
And
you will.
it's not, which I just TMI, I go to the bathroom all the time. I mean,
Yep.
sometimes I'll go before I even leave the restaurant, but it was not even having to go. It was just my stomach just ached. Like I wished I could have.
Right.
Gone,
Yeah. Yeah. You'll see a lot of, and tirzepatide is known, Mounjaro, Zepbound, they're known for not having as many side effects, but that doesn't mean they don't have any at all, right?
Right, but you just can't eat whatever, and I hate having a sour stomach. One time I had a sour stomach and I was in the car with Mom and Daddy and I burped and he rolled the window down. He said, "Who has crapped their pants?" I said, "Daddy, I burped." He said, "Lord, honey, something done soured on your stomach." It was bad.
It'll be worse on the Mounjaro.
People walk in my office and I'm like, "I didn't crap my pants. I promise. I didn't fart. I just burped and it's awful." It'll run you out of the room.
Yeah, I think some people could probably relate to that take this medicine.
And there are, deeper side effects, especially with people who have diabetes. They're at risk for gastroparesis, whereas that's, where the muscles in your stomach, they basically
they're
stop
just
working.
Paralyzed, basically. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you're taking a medication that is going to inhibit the emptying of your stomach, and that is why things sour in your stomach.
Yes.
They're
literally
out
delaying
slower.
gastric emptying.
Right. And just
it's sitting in there longer.
Exactly. It's sitting in there and it's literally souring on your stomach.
Yeah.
So when you eat something, you look at it and you want to think, do I want this in my body for up to
yes it's going to be sitting there a while. Yeah.
Right. So eat some fruit or something. You don't want that chicken leg in there going around with you for 3 weeks.
I don't know if it would smell any better if it was fruit or not.
But yeah, I think, talking about the, and I've had, friends that, they've nearly died, and that's with everything. I mean,
it is. People do need to be aware of the side effects, the possible serious side effects before they start these medicines. And they're very, very few and far between, but it's the same with all medicines. They all have the potential to give you serious side effects.
Right. We'll talk about the antidepressants, but I took Latuda and Lamictal, and those landed me in the psych units.
Yeah.
Some people they, work miracles for, but
you just never
that's
know.
where you've got to be your own advocate. You've got to listen to your body and you've got to communicate with your medical provider what's going on with you, because they cannot read your mind.
And y'all, we've heard about everything. I mean, it's not gonna be anything new. People get embarrassed. I'm like, listen, you've probably not told me anything I haven't heard before.
Where do you see the future going with these? Do you see it going more of this? Do you see another drug coming out for them to cover?
Oh, I see that they'll be making, I think we will see more drugs, even more efficacious, more effective drugs come out. I don't know when. I don't know how long that will be. I have no doubt that they're researching those right now, maybe like triple therapy where you have it hits 3 receptors. So semaglutide hits 1, tirzepatide hits 2. You may have.
Which receptors do they each hit?
From my research, they're different GLP receptors.
Gotcha.
So I don't know that it's really different.
Which deal with a lot of its pancreatic activity? Is that?
Well, these medicines can cause pancreatitis. That's one of the serious side effects. And if you've ever had a pancreatitis, we actually will not allow you to be on the medicines because it's too dangerous. Okay?
And you got to think, people, you're talking about medicines for originally for people who were type 2 diabetic.
Right.
Where they're not producing enough insulin. So people are like, well, how does that, you've got to go back to, hey, who was this originally for?
Yeah.
This is what it's targeting.
But as far as where I see these going, I do see them coming out with better therapies over time. I don't know how long that will take. I see, as the patents run out on the branded drugs, I think the compounds will be more easily accessible. My hope is that insurance companies will start to cover the compounds. I don't know if that will happen or not because they're not technically FDA approved. But they're literally, in my opinion, the same thing. I tell patients we can't call it the generic because of regulations and things, but it's like taking the generic of the drug. So I say, it's like going to Walmart and it's Tylenol versus acetaminophen. I mean, it's the same thing as, at least in my opinion. So I see that. I hope that they will become more easily accessible. I hope that the price will come down. And I think with time that will happen, but we're not there yet. And it's unfortunate because a lot of patients just can't afford them.
So here's since I'm going to be joining you a little bit
Yeah.
here, we'll kind of let the listeners go on the journey with me. So I'll just be upfront with you. On December 5th, I weighed 318. I'm 5'4". I'm as wide as I am tall. And on December 12th, I weighed 311. So it was about 7 pounds down.
Wow.
So December 12th, January 14th, a month and 2 days, 301.
That's awesome.
And then 2 days later, today, I actually saw the endocrinologist and 300 even.
Woo, you were almost under.
So I know I'm about to hit the twos. I don't know if I'll ever be in Wonderland, but two's definitely nice. So it's definitely, I haven't seen that weight in a couple of years.
That's awesome of you to share that though.
Because because it's working. And
what dose are you on?
I am just finished up the 12.5. I kind of had some where I had kept it.
Right. Of course. Everybody has their stash.
Yes. So, but we are at the 15.
Okay. And that is the highest dose, right?
That is.
Does that scare you?
It really doesn't, because, and I'm not even sure that it would hurt me to go back down and go back. I'm probably not going to do that.
Yeah.
But since I went so long, I know you and I had talked about, where I had been up and then I stopped and then.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway. So it doesn't scare me because, like I said, it's a tool. And I think that, the 12.5 is actually where I started feeling a difference.
Yeah.
So that really doesn't scare me in that I'm in that effective area now.
Yeah. Because, patients that plateau on Mounjaro, tirzepatide.
They really don't have anywhere to go.
Right. Like the only option that we have is to start like maybe an oral medication that suppresses appetite to get a little bit more out of it. But, like I said, my hope is that we come up with even more
Well, and that's
drugs.
another thing too. They're like, well, what are you going to do after you come off of it? I'm like, honey, I'm diabetic.
No,
and the thing of it is, like, once you're diabetic, you're always diabetic. You do not revert.
Well, that's another good thing to talk about. People will ask me, so what happens when I get to my goal weight? And I said, you have a choice to make. I said, you either come off of it and try to maintain it on your own, or you do maintenance dosing. And I'm a big proponent of maintenance dosing because what is going to happen when you stop taking that medication?
And your brain goes back to...
Everything is going to come back. The cravings, the hunger, everything before you started it is going to come back.
It's all coming back to me now. There were cupcakes and muffins and there were buckets of fries. My belly got big and then my legs, they spread out. Still got sleep apnea and now I've got the gout.
She's got me rolling. I knew it would happen. Woo! Yeah. So exactly. It's all going to come back. Okay. So I tell people, if they're super self-disciplined, go for it. Try it. But if you regain even 5 pounds, I recommend coming back on the medicine.
And as always, eat right and move with it.
Oh, yes.
I mean, it has given me some energy too. And the losing.
Yeah. I hear that a lot from patients.
I remember when I first started losing it, I was going to visit mom and dad and I was at the airport and I was like, thank goodness I have dropped about 20 pounds because I would have died of a heart attack going to the Southwest gate. That's why you save money flying Southwest. You drive to the airport, you walk 1/3 of the way to your destination, and then they taxi you
it feels
2/3, and then they fly you the other third.
Yes, we flew Southwest last trip we took, and you're right. Like the gate was down.
It could be like a tiny airport. Be like, you're at gate Z. Like you don't even have a B, C, or a D. You're at Z. You're at the end. You're at the edge of the earth.
And there was, what else? There were no food options. It was like terrible. Like the good stuff was in like Delta, American, those concourses. But with Southwest, there was like no food.
But what about the tasty selection of snacks? Don't you know they call them snacks? They used to call them like pretzels, peanuts, and then everybody had all these allergies. I really like that snack mix though, like snacks. Why do you call them snacks?
We had something good on the last flight. I don't remember what it was, though. It was something fancy.
On a Southwest flight?
I don't know if it's Southwest because we flew.
Did you have a dream?
No, we flew maybe American one way and then Southwest the other. I don't know.
Have you flown Spirit? I hear it's Spirit. They're like, we don't offer snacks, but if you can find like a French fry in the chair cushion, you can eat it.
No, I've been scared. I've been scared to
rough.
fly Spirit because of all the stories. I mean, it is cheaper when you look at the tickets. It's like,
yeah, but I mean, I don't even think I think you can like volunteer to be a flight attendant or even a pilot. Yeah. Like we didn't have a pilot show up today. Is anybody got a good drone experience or anything?
That'll do.
Anybody know the way to Kalamazoo? So what's the craziest question somebody has asked you or the craziest story you have?
Huh? Oh, yeah.
She doesn't name names.
Yeah, it's not.
What are you, the HIPAA police? Our producer over here is the HIPAA police.
Our producer, Jackson, is being the HIPAA police.
We're going to announce their social security number and their name. And
I would quickly get fired. Let's see. The craziest thing anybody's I don't know. I would have to think about that. There's nothing that just like.
You ever anybody try to like put it in their mouth? Like, do I put it in my tongue? You know, one thing like I've noticed, I think the needles are getting smaller because like with the Mounjaro, I don't feel it. But with the it was either the Trulicity or the Ozempic, it hurt.
Oh, really?
Like you felt it and then you felt the medicine going in. It got to where I dreaded doing it.
Yeah, because you have the auto injector.
And it would bruise. So it got to where like my ex-husband would just scare me and like come up and like jab it in my arm, which I thought he was doing me a favor. But now I feel like he was probably getting some satisfaction of coming up and stabbing me with a needle. I can say that now. I'm probably right. We laugh, but
oh gosh. Yeah, I don't know. Of course, like the compounds, you're doing it yourself. So it's an insulin syringe. It's a very tiny needle.
But yeah, it doesn't hurt now at all.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've had patients take the whole thing, and then I'm like, yeah, it probably wasn't a great idea. But
that's insane.
Yeah.
What's like the lowest weight of someone that you've had ask?
Well, we have stipulations, like they can't even get through to us until they meet the criteria. So, we'll have patients come in with a body mass index of between 27 and 30, and they don't have a weight-related comorbidity. And so we'll do lab work to see if there's maybe high cholesterol or, an A1C that's elevated that would qualify them. But people get mad at me when I tell them, I'm sorry, you don't qualify. Like they get angry. And so that's always.
I don't think I've ever been told I'm too thin to do anything.
Well, these people, they're not happy about it.
I would find where you lived and I would come hug your neck if you ever said, Misty, you don't qualify for this anymore.
I wish that was the way it worked.
I would say thank you. I've done the telehealth thing before. It's kind of weird.
It is. It is kind of weird, but I really like it. I like it a lot.
It's a nice option. Like I've done it like on a weekend when I had like pink eye or something. Yeah. And you just don't feel like going to the doctor.
Yeah. And there's not everything is appropriate for telehealth. And we tell patients that, like if you require an in-person exam, you need to go in to see the doctor.
I mean, yeah. I'm not going to call up and ask for my gynecology exam.
I've been in a situation.
I'm not limber enough to do that through telehealth.
We're not talking about weight loss medicine, but I have had a situation involving a possible STD that
what they do, offer to text you some pictures or something?
No, they offered to show me.
No.
And I said, no, we're not doing that. Nope.
Like I said, I'm not limber enough to do that through telehealth.
But no. Mm-mm. I'm amazed at what people think we can accomplish through telehealth.
It takes all kinds.
It does. So.
Wow.
Yeah, now we're about to end this call. Thank you. Bye. But anyway. Okay.
Either that or charge them $3.99 a minute to talk to you.
If you guys have questions for us, for Misty, for me, you can go to the Facebook page. It's called Real with Haley. And feel free to, ask questions on there. Maybe we'll post something on there about this. Feel free to leave it in the comments. We are going to record another episode and, maybe we can do like a second GLP-1. I don't know. where we answer questions if people have questions.
And also mine is Misty Hurt for people who are not Facebook friends with me.
Yeah.
That's my personal one. I
Yeah, feel
don't
free to look
have.
up Misty as well.
So yeah, so if you're not Facebook friends with me, in the time being, Misty Hurt is where you can find me on Facebook. I'd love to, if you've never met me or not friends with me,
Absolutely.
just
Reach
hop
out
on
to
there
her.
and reach
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
All right. So thank you all so much for joining us on Real, the Unedited Life of a Christian Woman. And I think Misty and I are going to record some more together, and we're going to, make this a regular thing. So we appreciate so much that she's been here today. She is hilarious. We love her so much.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
having me.
And make
this is
sure
awesome.
that you reach out to her, Misty Hurt, on Facebook. She'll be glad to friend you. She's hilarious, you guys. Trust me, you won't regret that
You won't
friend
regret
request
it at all.
So, yeah. But thanks again. You all have a great day.
And stay warm.
Yes.